Atlantis, the mythical island, has captivated the human imagination for thousands of years. According to Plato, this island and its civilization were destroyed in a single day and night. An unprecedented natural catastrophe wiped out the entire Atlantean Empire, along with its capital. From ancient times to the present day, people have debated whether this story is pure fiction, a philosophical allegory, or a distorted memory of a real civilization. In this documentary, we will explore whether Atlantis could truly have existed and examine the various theories surrounding its possible location. We will also look at other fallen civilizations whose wonders still inspire fascination, as well as cities once believed to be mythical but later discovered. In addition, we will discuss legendary lost places such as El Dorado, which have been sought for centuries. Atlantis, according to Plato, the Greek philosopher who lived between the 5th and 4th centuries before the Common Era, is the main source of information about Atlantis. According to him, Atlantis was a mythical island that housed an extraordinarily powerful and advanced civilization with a strong military structure. He describes Atlantis in two of his dialogues, Timaeus and Critias. In these texts, Plato explores philosophical ideas about the ideal society, power, and politics, using Atlantis as a symbolic metaphor. The story is told through the character Critias, who claims to have heard it from his grandfather, who in turn learned it from the Athenian lawmaker Solon during his travels in Egypt. According to this account, Atlantis existed roughly 9,000 years before the time of ancient Athens. Plato describes it as an island larger than Libya and Asia combined. It was located beyond the Pillars of Heracles, the name given by the Greeks to the two promontories surrounding the Strait of Gibraltar, marking the entrance to the Mediterranean Sea. On this island flourished a highly organized society with advanced political, cultural, and technological structures. Its lands were fertile, rich in natural resources, and abundant in wildlife. Plato also mentions a mysterious metal called orichalcum, which modern scholars believe may have been a valuable copper-based alloy. The capital city was magnificent, filled with grand palaces and temples, surrounded by concentric rings of land and water that formed a sophisticated defensive system. At the center stood a temple dedicated to Poseidon, the god of the sea, revered by the Atlanteans. Inside stood an enormous golden statue depicting the god driving a chariot pulled by winged horses. According to Plato, the inhabitants of Atlantis were descendants of Poseidon and a mortal woman named Cleito, considered the mother of the Atlantean race. They were noble, generous, and powerful. For many generations they lived in harmony, respected their laws, and honored their gods, which allowed their civilization to flourish. Over time, however, moral decay began to take hold. Greed and ambition gradually became their guiding principles. This moral decline is central to Plato's message. He uses it to illustrate that ethics are fundamental to maintaining a just society. Driven by ambition, the Atlanteans sought to conquer other lands, including Athens. In the ensuing conflict, the Athenians emerged victorious, thanks to their moral and military superiority. Plato idealizes Athens as a city of virtue and justice. Ultimately, the gods punished Atlantis for its arrogance and corruption. The island disappeared in a single terrible day and night, sinking beneath the sea. Through this story, Plato sought to convey that pride, moral decay, and unchecked power inevitably lead to destruction. From that moment on, Atlantis became a symbol of civilizations brought down by their own excesses. Although there is no physical evidence proving its existence, many have tried to locate Atlantis over the centuries. Most historians believe it was a literary invention created by Plato to illustrate philosophical ideas. Nevertheless, ruins and archaeological remains discovered in various parts of the world have been linked by some to the legend of Atlantis. These discoveries, along with traces of other mysterious civilizations, continue to fuel fascination with this lost world. According to Timaeus, they sought to control the cities from Libya to Egypt, and in Europe as far as Tyrrhenia in central Italy. However, when they directed their efforts toward Greece, the only ones who managed to defeat them were the Athenians. In Critias, it is said that the gods decided to punish the arrogance of the Atlanteans. They then sent a cataclysm in the form of earthquakes and floods. Wave after wave swallowed the island, and amid storms, lightning, and earthquakes, it disappeared forever. Plato says that this happened in a single terrible day and night. There were no survivors, and everything remained at the bottom of the sea. In this way, Plato explains that the ethical superiority of Athens contributed to its victory over Atlantis, despite the latter's advanced culture. There are historians and archaeologists who attribute this story to the destruction of real ancient cities. These were populations that lived on islands and were devastated by natural disasters. Therefore, it is possible that Plato based his story of Atlantis on these accounts of vanished civilizations. 5. Theories about the location of Atlantis. Where is Atlantis? This is a question that many historians have asked for centuries. One can begin with the location given by Plato himself. Beyond the Pillars of Heracles, that is, beyond the Strait of Gibraltar, which for people of that time was equivalent to beyond the known world. These vague indications gave rise to numerous theories and different hypotheses that attempted to locate this island on our planet. Over the centuries, many interpretations of Plato's story have emerged, differing greatly from one another. This means that the idea of Atlantis still exists in the collective imagination of humanity. From thinkers contemporary with Plato, through the Middle Ages and the Renaissance, and up to authors of the 19th and 20th centuries, many have believed that Atlantis truly existed. Others, however, rely on historical, geological, and archaeological evidence to deny its existence. The most modern and scientific hypotheses suggest that Plato took aspects and elements from certain ancient myths linked to real cities and places, in order to create a story that lies somewhere between myth and reality. 6. Akrotiri, the foundation of the Atlantis story. Some archaeologists, historians, and researchers associate the story of Atlantis with the destruction of Akrotiri. Among these scholars is the archaeologist Spyridon Marinatos, one of the most important Greek archaeologists of the 20th century. He carried out excavations at Akrotiri during the 1960s, a site located on the island of Santorini. It is known that this site dates to the Minoan civilization, based on the style of ceramics and frescoes found there. Santorini, ancient Thera, is an island in a small circular archipelago in the Aegean Sea, a highly volcanic region. Between 1640 and 1630 before Christ, a catastrophic eruption occurred that submerged much of the island. It caused a gigantic tsunami that dramatically affected neighboring islands and continental coastlines. It also covered Akrotiri with a thick layer of ash, which allowed the site to remain remarkably well preserved through the centuries. This hypothesis suggests that the eruption of Thera or Santorini may have inspired the story of Atlantis. The Minoan eruption, as it is known, would have given the inhabitants time to flee. This conclusion is drawn because no human remains were found at Akrotiri, even though houses, temples, and many objects were discovered. This event may also have indirectly caused the destruction of the island of Crete, located south of Santorini, and the end of its advanced civilization. 7. The hypothesis of the Makuan or Spartel Bank. This hypothesis states that Atlantis was located southwest of Morocco, in the Atlantic Ocean near the Strait of Gibraltar. The Makuan or Spartel Bank is a submerged island in the Atlantic Ocean, off Cape Spartel. The island lies 183 feet below sea level, which corresponds to 56 meters. This island was submerged approximately 12,000 years ago, when the last ice age ended and ocean levels rose. The Makuan Bank is therefore one of the places that support the theory that Atlantis truly existed. Its geographical location is quite close to where the mythical island is believed to have been located. This hypothesis arose thanks to the claim made in 2001 by the French geologist Jacques Collina-Girard, who stated that sea levels rose by 135 meters or 443 feet to reach their current level. This rise flooded the Strait of Gibraltar and created a small semi-enclosed sea between the Mediterranean and the Atlantic Ocean. Thus, the Makuan Bank formed a small archipelago. When sea levels continued to rise, this island slowly sank. 9,400 years before Christ, an earthquake of magnitude 9 occurred. This terrible earthquake caused enormous tidal waves and floods that ultimately swept the island to the bottom of the sea. Geologist Collina-Girard suggested that the memory of this tsunami remained in the cultural imagination of ancient Egypt for at least 5,000 years. 8. The Azores hypothesis. Another possible location of Atlantis is the Azores, an archipelago of 9 volcanic islands belonging to Portugal. They are located west of Lisbon in the Atlantic Ocean. Many believe these islands are actually the peaks of Atlantis. The North American writer Ignatius L. Donnelly, in his book Atlantis, the Antediluvian World published in 1882, was perhaps the first to propose the Azores as a possible location. The French geologist Pierre-Marie Termeyer later joined this idea, proposing in the early 20th century that the Azores could be the remains of Atlantis. However, the American paleontologist Charles Scutchert refuted this argument. According to Scutchert, the Azores are volcanic islands rather than remnants of a continental mass, and there is no geological evidence supporting the historical existence of Atlantis. To support this, he pointed out that the Azores are volcanic underwater mountains whose slopes descend steeply into the sea until they reach a plateau. Samples taken from this plateau confirm that the region has remained unchanged for millions of years. According to Plato's account, the island of Atlantis sank. Therefore, based on these data, Atlantis does not correspond to the Azores. 9. The Canary Islands, Madeira, and Cape Verde hypothesis. Other authors identify the Canary Islands as the remains of Atlantis. Among them are the 18th century French naturalist Jean-Baptiste Bory de Saint Vincent and the Scottish journalist of the late 19th and early 20th centuries, Louis Spence. As with the Azores, the Canary Islands, Madeira, and Cape Verde have also been considered remnants of the mythical island. This may be due to their proximity to the Strait of Gibraltar and their location in the Atlantic Ocean. However, geological studies show that over the past 4 million years, the Canary Islands have been continuously rising. This means that none of these islands has sunk for millions of years. The same applies to the formations of Madeira and Cape Verde. Therefore, this hypothesis also lacks scientific foundation. 10. The Yonaguni structures, Japan on the other side of the world. The Yonaguni structures in Japan are astonishing in appearance. They are enormous stone blocks submerged in the Pacific Ocean. They were discovered by the Japanese diver Kihachiro Aratake in 1985. Since their discovery, there has been much speculation about their origin. They are rock formations on the seabed that were likely above sea level during the Ice Ages. At first glance, they appear like staircases, terraces, and platforms carved into the rock, leading some to believe they are remnants of an ancient submerged civilization. Some call the site the Japanese Atlantis. However, not all oceanographers, marine geologists, or archaeologists agree with this interpretation. Many believe it is a completely natural formation that at some point, when exposed above water, may have been used by humans. One of the most striking features is the arrangement of the massive stone blocks, which appear cut and stacked on top of one another. Some believe they are remnants of the ancient civilization of Mu, and if so, they would be among the oldest structures in the world. The structures would be at least 10,000 years old. One reason some scholars argue for human involvement is that the blocks show symmetry and 90-degree angles. This has been highlighted by marine geologist Masaki Kimura from the University of the Ryukyus, who studied the site for more than a decade. Another important aspect is that there are indications that some parts of the stone were carved. Although it is unclear what tools could have been used, these carvings appear as parallel vertical and horizontal lines, which many specialists interpret as evidence of human intervention. However, because the structure lies on a tectonic fault, it is subject to frequent earthquakes. These earthquakes tend to fracture rocks in regular patterns and can produce the parallel and vertical lines seen on the formations. Thus, most scientists reject the idea that the Yonaguni structures are artificial. There is abundant geological evidence pointing to erosion processes over millions of years that produced these remarkable blocks. At the site, no remains of tools, artifacts, or other objects indicating human presence in the distant past have been found. 11. The Richat structure. This is another site proposed as a possible location of Atlantis due to its unusual physical characteristics. This is a fascinating geological structure located in the Sahara Desert in Mauritania. The unique structure has a diameter of about 50 kilometers or 31 miles, and from space it appears as a massive rocky formation arranged in a spiral pattern. For this reason, it is also known as the Eye of the Sahara, as it resembles a gigantic eye visible only from great heights. What is particularly intriguing is that this geological formation contains concentric circles within it. This led to the belief that it might be an impact crater caused by a meteorite. However, this theory was rejected due to the absence of materials typically associated with meteorite impacts. The most widely accepted theory is that the structure was formed through natural volcanic and erosional processes over thousands of years. Although it is primarily a geological formation, archaeological remains have also been discovered in the area. These include fragments of pottery, stone tools, and temporary camps from prehistoric times. Nevertheless, there are no remains of a large city or ruins of monumental buildings. This is a strong reason to dismiss the idea that the Eye of the Sahara could be Atlantis. The Bimini Road. The Bimini Road, also known as the Bimini Wall or Bimini Highway, has been proposed as a possible location of the lost Atlantis. This rock formation, located on the shallow seabed near the island of Bimini in the Bahamas, has been the subject of much speculation. Due to its apparently ordered layout, many believe it was constructed by an advanced civilization that has long since disappeared. However, most scientists, geologists, and archaeologists agree that this rock structure is natural. Research indicates that the blocks are what is known as beach rock, a type of rock formed through natural processes. Over millions of years, deposited material hardened and was later eroded by water and underwater currents. This process is known as lithification and is common in marine environments rich in calcium carbonate, such as the waters around Bimini. Supporters of the human-made theory claim that the blocks were cut at 90-degree angles, similar to the structures found at Yonaguni. They argue that such geometric formations do not occur naturally. However, it is enough to observe natural forms to understand that nature does produce geometric shapes, ranging from the simplest to the most complex, such as the crystals found in snowflakes under a microscope. Geology explains these angles through environmental pressure acting on rock, causing it to contract, cool, or dry out, which leads to cracking. The resulting fractures often form angles, especially 90 or 120 degrees. On the other hand, no remains of artifacts or tools left by any civilization have been found in the Bimini area. Tartessos and Atlantis. Tartessos, the mythical city located on the banks of the Guadalquivir River on the Iberian Peninsula, is another possible location associated with Atlantis. For the ancient Greeks, Tartessos was linked to the river that flowed through a large region in the south of the peninsula, and the culture that flourished there was considered the first civilization of the West. According to the accounts of the Greek historian Herodotus and the Roman author Avianus, it possessed a very prosperous market where the great river brought tin, gold, and copper from Celtica. It was an advanced civilization that prospered roughly between 1,000 and 500 years before the Common Era and later disappeared. This mysterious city was an important commercial center connected to the Phoenicians and the Greeks. It was located within a geographical triangle, formed by what are now the provinces of Huelva, Seville, and Cadiz. After the Carthaginian conquest, around 500 years before the Common Era, communication between Greeks, Phoenicians, and Tartessians was interrupted. Historians believe this may be one of the reasons why the civilization lost its power. In fact, very little is known about it afterward, as if silence had completely swallowed it. From that point on, its history became intertwined with myth, since Hercules was said to have traveled to the region to complete his 10th labor, the slaying of the giant Geryon. For this reason, the southern edge of the Tartessian domain came to be known as the Pillars of Hercules, the Strait of Gibraltar, which marks the westernmost boundary of the Mediterranean Sea. Centuries later, travelers associated Tartessos with Atlantis because of its location, wealth, and advanced civilization. Archaeological evidence, however, only shows that an extraordinary culture once emerged and disappeared along the banks of the Guadalquivir River, without definitive proof that it was Atlantis. For the ancient Greeks, Tarsus was the river that flowed through a large region in the south of the Iberian Peninsula, while Tartessos was the wealthy culture that flourished there and is considered the first civilization of the Western world. According to the descriptions of the Greek historian Herodotus and the Roman author Avianus, this city possessed a very prosperous market, where the great river carried tin, gold, and silver from Celtica. It was an advanced civilization that flourished between 1,000 and 500 years before the Common Era and later disappeared. This mysterious city was an important and active trading center, closely connected with the Phoenicians and the Greeks. It was located within a geographical triangle formed by the present-day provinces of Huelva, Seville, and Cadiz. After the Carthaginian conquest, around 500 years before the Common Era, communication between the Greeks, Phoenicians, and the Tartessians was interrupted. Historians believe this may have been one of the reasons why the civilization gradually lost its power. In fact, almost nothing more is known about it afterward, as if silence had completely swallowed it. From that moment on, its history became intertwined with myth, since Hercules was said to have traveled to this region to complete his 10th labor, the slaying of the giant Geryon. For this reason, the southern edge of the Tartessian territory came to be known as the Pillars of Hercules, the Strait of Gibraltar, which marks the westernmost boundary of the Mediterranean Sea. Several centuries later, travelers began to associate Tartessos with Atlantis because of its location, its wealth, and its advanced civilization. However, archaeological evidence only indicates that along the banks of the Guadalquivir River, there once arose and disappeared a remarkable culture. Other hypotheses about the location of Atlantis. Over the centuries separating Plato's time from the present day, many hypotheses have emerged regarding the possible location of the mythical Atlantis. Doggerland, for example, is a submerged landmass south of the North Sea in Europe, which many believe could correspond to Atlantis. Other proposed locations include the Irish Sea or Great Britain, as well as Scandinavia or Izmir in Turkey, and even the Great Rift Valley in the region that today includes Israel and Sinai. Remarkably, Atlantis is not limited to the Old World, since some researchers claim that its remains could even be found in the Bolivian Altiplano. Throughout history, there have been many cities that disappeared due to natural disasters, wars, or famine. These cities had real and proven existence and occupied vast territories. They were prosperous, engaged in trade, and generally densely populated. However, certain events brought about their end, such as devastating wars, catastrophic earthquakes, volcanic eruptions, or floods. In this way, they vanished forever. Some disappeared without leaving any trace, while others left behind ruins and mysteries. There are cities that vanished completely and became known only after being rediscovered. Others are remembered only through myths and legends, with their locations lost. There are also cities that were always known but were abandoned for centuries. It was precisely the active search for these cities by adventurers and researchers, beginning in the 15th century, that gave rise to the discipline of archaeology. 16. The eruption of Pompeii. This ancient Roman city was located near Naples in Italy, on the coast of the Bay of Naples. It is perhaps one of the most famous and best preserved cities of antiquity. Its geographical position in a volcanic and seismic zone meant that it was exposed to natural disasters throughout its history. On the 24th of August in the year 79 after Christ, Mount Vesuvius erupted violently, triggering a series of pyroclastic flows. This type of avalanche consists of a deadly combination of hot volcanic gases and solid materials. At 1 o'clock in the morning, the first pyroclastic surge destroyed the city of Herculaneum, killing all its inhabitants. The first 3 waves did not reach Pompeii, but the fourth, which arrived shortly after dawn, was devastating. It killed everyone who was still in the city, and many bodies were found attempting to escape the rain of pumice. In this way, Pompeii was buried under many layers of ash and other volcanic materials. This is precisely what allowed the city to be preserved until it was rediscovered centuries later. Its rediscovery occurred in the 16th century, when the architect Fontana carried out excavations while searching for a new course for the Sarno River. However, the Spanish engineer Roque Joaquín de Alcubierre was the true discoverer of the site in 1738, when he began more systematic excavations. A few years later, excavations of a clearly scientific nature began, gradually uncovering houses, streets, temples, baths, forums, and gardens. In many houses, wall paintings were found, demonstrating the high artistic level of the painters of the time. All of this has been preserved in remarkably good condition, allowing scholars to study daily Roman life during the 1st century. Angkor, the city of abandoned temples. In Angkor, a region of Cambodia, stood the capital of the Khmer Empire. During its period of splendor between the 9th and 15th centuries, this ancient city was renowned for its extraordinary temples, such as Angkor Wat, the largest and best preserved of them all. Although it was a great empire, it experienced a period of decline that ended with the abandonment of the city in the 16th century. Historians and archaeologists indicate that this decline was caused by several factors of different nature. On the one hand, changes in the religion of the kings influenced the city's development. They were initially Hindu, later Buddhist, and eventually returned to Hinduism. This brought about significant social and cultural transformations. For example, old temples were destroyed and new ones were built. On the other hand, from the 12th century onward, invasions by the Mongols under Kublai Khan came from the north, while from the east the Siamese launched attacks. At the beginning of the 14th century, Angkor entered a serious period of recession from which it could not recover. Already in the 15th century, the inhabitants and their rulers abandoned the city, even though it was briefly reoccupied in the middle of the 16th century. By the end of that century, the Khmer Empire was conquered by the Siamese, and the city was definitively abandoned. Among the natural factors, it is important to highlight the severe climatic changes, including prolonged droughts followed by heavy rains. During droughts, water was scarce and there were not enough crops to feed the population. During the rains, canals and hydraulic structures were damaged, making the inhabitants even more vulnerable. Ultimately, all these factors together contributed to the decline of Angkor, until the capital was moved to Phnom Penh, leaving behind the once flourishing city. The jungle gradually reclaimed its spaces, slowly engulfing its imposing temples over the centuries. Today, Angkor is a World Heritage Site and is home to 910 monuments. If you found this video interesting and thought-provoking, don't forget to like it and share it with your friends. Subscribe to the channel so you don't miss part 2, where we will go even deeper into the mysteries of Atlantis, lost civilizations, and the hidden secrets of the ancient world. Leave a comment below and tell us what you think. Do you believe Atlantis really existed, and where do you think it might have been located? Your opinion matters to us. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you very soon in part 2.